An Oxford is any formal shoe with open lacing. This additional decorative piece is called broguing.
Oxford's not brogues.
Words to live by, Eggsy. Words to live by. Try a pair.
I used to be envious of fellow sartorial enthusiasts in the Western world. Every time I saw footage from renowned festivals for classic menswear like Pitti in Firenze, I would marvel at the sight of gentlemen layering with double-breasted waistcoats and Chesterfield coats. It made me wonder how amazing it would be to do that too. But here in Bangkok, where I live, the average temperature hovers around 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which can easily break into a sweat like you are in sauna after just half an hour outdoors, even without any layers at all. I still can't believe there's a coping mechanism among local sartorial enthusiasts here comparing Bangkok's weather to southern Italy like Napoli, where their summer is cooler than our winter. Anyway, while it's true that layering with an old shirt or jacket isn't exactly the best practice for dealing with Bangkok's tropical heat, I simply can't afford not to dress up. Shirt as mandatory, jacket as essential, necktie as typical. These garments that, though somewhat out of touch with modern society, become non-negotiable once you reach a certain point in your sartorial journey. Dressing up every day just becomes a part of you. Now, you might be asking, why? Especially if you ever visit here or any other tropical place in the world. Why on earth, if the weather is so hot, do people still feel the need to dress up, layer with jacket and accessorize with neckwear? Interestingly, this is a question I recently asked myself, which I've spent a lot of time reflecting on the reason behind this seemingly irrational act. The human mind does not run on logic any more than a horse runs on petrol. Laurie Sutherland. But what is the illogical idea behind this? Why does it resonate with other sartorial enthusiasts in tropical places or elsewhere, no matter how bad or unsuitable the weather may be? And while fashion trends have surged forward into an era where gym clothes are acceptable in high-end restaurants, why bother wearing outfits that reflect an old-fashioned, seemingly outdated sense of style? Gentlemen, that is what we're going to discuss in this video. So now, allow me to introduce you to the landscape of overly casual society, the reality we are all living in.
What are you doing here? You taking a piss?
Some more examples of young men who simply need a silver suppository.
I probably don't need to tell you how overly casual today's society has become. If you click on this video, you already know that humanity has taken casualness too far. Pajamas at the airport, eye glued to the phone during conversation, t-shirts and shorts at an orchestra performance where the performers were wearing white ties and tails. And what intrigues me is that the organizer allowed this attire despite firmly announcing a dress code of at least smart casual. Now, compare that to the elegance of the golden age from the 1920s to the 1960s. That's entirely different stories, which I want to explain this concept in depth in the video How to Be Classic Gentleman When Others Around You Don't. But gentlemen, the question here is, how did humanity go from the elegance and glamour of the golden age to this very casual state, all within less than a century? While many catalysts and social movements have gradually pushed us toward casualness, from my personal point of view, it all starts from this one significant social movement, the counterculture of the late 60s and 70s, a bold rejection of traditional values driven by a desire for authenticity, freedom, and a new vision of society that broke away from the conformity of the past. And if there's any pop culture in the 21st century that illustrates this topic so well, it's Mad Men. From the first season to the last, the series explores how its main character navigates the constant changes in the dynamic American society, especially Donald Francis Draper. For someone like him, a conservative advertising man on Madison Avenue who believes in the concept of reinvention, self-control, and essentially the American dream, seeing the world around him reject the very essence of what he holds on to, is undoubtedly disorienting. The adolescent's mind is essentially a mind of moratorium, a psychological stage between childhood and adulthood, and between the morality learned by the child and the ethics to be developed by the adult. Erik Erikson. Youth and rebellion are inseparable. We see this countless times in coming-of-age films or even in our own direct experiences. A desire to crave out a distinct identity and build a world that reflects our ideals. When young people at that time faced with the burdens of materialistic society, war, racial, and social inequalities, what could be more rational for them than to break free from those chains? In a sense, the counterculture of the late 60s and 70s became the catalyst for change. But the young people at that time were tired of the conventional approach to life, from the way they dress to the way they live. There's a classic piece named Rebel Without a Cause, starring the one and only James Dean. It's another great film that embodies this core idea, highly recommended for both style inspiration and cultural study. But the overall resource of this counterculture is more casual daily attire, less formal decorum in social interactions, and the spark that ignited a societal shift. From that moment, society gradually leaned towards a more carefree attitude, and over time, this shift became more ingrained.
You're a fucking ugly bitch!
Even though the 1980s might seem like a resurgence of the class and manners of the Golden Age, it was merely superficial. The essence of society still carried the carefree narrative beneath the surface. What came back were the external trappings of classic sartorial manners like suits, ties, and dress shoes, but for what purpose? To enhance a corporate culture that turned into the famous Yappie Guidebook, a guideline for young professionals chasing glamorous materialism and social status. Films like Wall Street in 1987 and American Psycho in 2000 perfectly portrayed the superficial obsessions of the 1980s. Then came the 1990s, the endgame for elegance. Society had fully transitioned into an overly casual era, and with the advent of the internet and social media in the decades that followed, human life was never the same again. What once required a deep breath and courage to interact in real life turned into a single click on Instagram or swipe on a dating app. For dressing up that once a daily necessity became a sacred ritual reserved for special occasions, and instead of holding eye contact in social settings, we now hold our gaze at the square electronic devices most of the time. Gentlemen, this is the landscape of the society we are living in. Of course, there will be an objections from the masses who likely won't even to click to watch this video that might argue, well, isn't it a personal decision to choose what to wear, how to treat others, and how to enter relationships as long as it doesn't disturb anyone? Well, it's true that every individual has the freedom to make their own choices, but as George Bernard Shaw once said, better keep yourself clean and bright. You are the window through which you must see the world. When you decide to become the best version of yourself, both internally and externally, your life will never be the same. But I understand how you feel. In today's world where simply wearing a button-down shirt, chinos, and plain sneakers is considered a polished look, it's quite challenging to go beyond that. We tend to click to the idea of comfort first, believing that jackets or leather footwear are reserved only for specific occasions. And then there's the inevitable "where are you going" gaze and question that society seems to impose. These are the norms that society expects you to obey, but deep down, you know that you shouldn't. So the only thing left to figure out is how to break free from these expectations while still being able to relate to those around you.
Why don't you ask that tailor friend of yours to knock up a nice chicken costume? It'll suit you, you mug.
Humans are complex creatures. On one hand, we crave uniqueness and individuality, yet we also yearn for belonging, a society that we can align and relate to. When you choose to dress in a way that 99% of people don't relate to, sociologically speaking, they may perceive you as an outcast, someone who behaves differently from the norm. But fear not, gentlemen, because there's a solution to this. If the root cause of this dilemma is the perception that dressing up in a classic manner is out of touch with the masses, then we just need to make it relatable by tapping into something deeply ingrained in human nature. Humans crave harmony and order, qualities fulfilled by simplicity and refinement. These represent an unconscious desire for the ideal and a pursuit of excellence, which is the underrated reason why classic menswear like suits, shirts, trousers, and ties still holds a place in 2020s. It's why there are countless comments on clips of classic Hollywood Golden Age films reminiscing about the glamour of that era, and it's why whenever you see a gentleman or a lady dressed and acting in a sophisticated manner, it's undeniably alluring, even though it's quite a rare sight to see this day. When we as men dress elegantly, and questions like "are you going somewhere" arise, it's because the masses associate this level of elegance with special occasions only, not because you're wearing something odd or inappropriate. So, my question is, why does it need to be reserved for those events only? Why can't dressing up be a mandatory for everyday life? Instead of seeing the act of dressing up as that of an outcast, I would argue it's a symbol, being an outlier, a statement of nonconformity in a world that has become overly casual. Just like the counterculture movement that took place in the 1960s to 70s, but this time, it's the casualness that has been challenged. Now, here's the interesting part. How can you dress in a way that delicately symbolizes elegance while still remaining relevant to those around you without feeling out of place? So, gentlemen, I give you Everyday, polished styling. The proven way to dress up when others around you don't. When it's come to dressing well, it's a blend of both objective and subjective factors. Subjectively, one garment might be seen as stylish by one person and terrible by another. Take black clothing for instance. Among sartorial enthusiasts, especially the more conservative ones, you often hear that there's no such thing as a proper black suit, and they might even tell you to burn it unless you want to look like a character from a Quentin Tarantino film. Yet for others, black is the epitome of style and versatility, which is often the case in the fashion world, as you can see from iconic figures like Ralph Lauren, Tom Ford, or many more. So, in a way, good or bad style can depend on individual perspective, which means it can't always be firmly defined. However, there's a rule of thumb when it comes to elegant styling. No matter how sophisticated your ensemble, if it's out of context, it's not recognized as truly elegant. Now gentlemen, I know what you're thinking. Wait a sec, Patrick. Didn't you just tell me to be an outlier in this overly casual society? If I need to be aware of others who likely aren't giving much thought to dressing, wouldn't wearing even just a button-down shirt and chinos be considered out of context and overdressed? Well gentlemen, that's where it gets interesting. With these three principles, context-based styling, the formality ladder, and the personal pivoting, I promise you won't suffer from this dilemma again.
As Hemingway said, there is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self.
Let's start with the most important of all, context-based styling. Whenever you dress up for any occasion, from grocery shopping to a close friend wedding, there are 4 key questions you need to answer. What am I going to do? Whom am I going to meet? Where is the event taking place? And when is the event happening? For what am I going to do? This is about choosing garments that's suitable for the activities you'll be engaging in. For whom am I going to meet? This is about respecting others, especially when the protagonist of the event is not you. It helps define the range of garments and styles you can choose to stay relevant and respectful. For where is the event taking place? This is about following both written and unwritten dress codes and optimizing your outfit for the environment, considering factors like weather, whether the event is indoor or outdoor, and so on. For when is the event happening? This is about choosing the right color harmony. If it's a daytime event, lighter tones are more aesthetic. If it's in the evening, darker tones are more appropriate. For a more in-depth explanation, check out this video where I use James Bond as a reference for this framework in action. Now, we have covered the factors that allow you to stay within the context and relate to others. It's time to move on to the formality ladder. As you know, dress shirts and t-shirts, trousers and shorts, leather footwears and sneakers all have different levels of formality. But in the world of style, formality isn't just determined by the type of garment. Other factors also play a role, including fabrics, colors, and specific details. Let's take a closer look at each one. When it's come to fabric, there are 3 main types used in most high-quality garments: wool, linen, and cotton. Sometimes silk is included, but it's usually reserved for accessory like neckwear or as part of a blended fabric. But here's where things get a bit more complex. These 3 fabrics can have different levels of formality depending on the weaving technique. For wool, you have options like worsted, hopsack, tweed, and flannel. For cotton, there's poplin, twill, and Oxford cloth. Here's a very concise approach to this topic. Wool is generally the most formal fabric, followed by cotton and then linen. However, determining whether cotton is more formal than linen depends on the weave techniques and other factors specific to the garment. So, every time you want to dress up, look for wool. When you want to dress down or keep things casual, opt for cotton or linen. This applies to a wide range of garments from jackets to shirts to trousers. Next, let's talk about colors of your garments. This one might be easier to grasp, as you probably already know that the darker the garment, the more formal it becomes. Conversely, the lighter the color, the more casual it tends to be. But here's where it gets fun. As a fan of wearing all jackets and trousers, I discovered that combining both dark and light tones can offer flexibility and creative expression when dressing up. This allows you to adapt to various events throughout the day. In other words, you don't have to stick to a monochromatic look if the context permits. Now, on to the final part of the formality ladder. The specific details of your garments. This is yet another expansive topic, especially when it comes to jackets, and could easily fill an entire series of video. Fortunately, Many talented creators in the sartorial world have already explained the details of each garment in great depth, and perhaps even better than I could. If you want to learn more, simply search for the garment in question on YouTube or Google, and I'm quite sure that you'll be in good hands. But gentlemen, let me show you how these three elements of formality, fabric, color, and details comes all together in practice. Let's say I use context-based styling to plan my outfit, and it turned out I'll be accompanying friends in the afternoon in the CBD area while attending an orchestra performance with a smart casual dress code in the evening. Here's how the formality ladder comes into play. For fabric, since I'll be attending both casual urban hangout and a relatively formal event on the same day, I need an outfit that works for both. I combine wool and cotton, which is this jacket and trouser I'm wearing right now, though you might not see them. And then I bridge the two fabrics with a flannel wool necktie, which gives a more casual vibe than a pure silk one. For color, I've chosen a combination of both dark and light tones with high contrast, dark navy for the jacket and ivory for the trousers. Just like the fabric, I bridge the contrast with a neutral grey tie featuring a check pattern, adding a playfulness and casual touch while still maintaining a polished look. For details, the blazer I'm wearing has a silver brass button that stands out against the navy color. The soft tailor shouldered with a minimal padding and jetted pocket keep it clean and polished, but not too strict. Perfect for a day that requires blending casual and formal elements from day to night. When you understand the fundamentals of formality, you can navigate your attire for any context gracefully, staying within the bounds of appropriateness, an essential aspect of being an elegant gentleman. Yet, there's still one last problem that remains unsolved: the missing piece of the puzzle when dressing up in an overly casual society without feeling our place. While we now know how to assess the context, choose attire based on formality, and select garments accordingly, the question remains: how do we actually style them in a way that nods to the occasion while still allowing for individual expression? That's where the final piece of the puzzle comes in: personal pivoting. As we discuss the subjective nature of style, let's explore its influence. Gentlemen, let me give you some example. Take a controversial piece like the double-breasted jacket. For some, this piece is highly associated with formality and seriousness. Yet for others, it's just another jacket that can be worn casually, unbuttoned, as long as it has the right construction and details to allow for that. What I'm saying is that even within the same context, guided by formalities, the choice of what garment to wear is ultimately yours to make. When dressing up becomes a daily habit and you learn more about garments and style, it's natural to develop a personal approach to different contexts and events. For instance, smart casual for you might not just be a jacket, button-down shirt, chinos, and little brown shoes. It could be a full double-breasted with a stripe or playful pattern, worn with a turtleneck and velvet slippers as footwear. I know this from my own experience. When I first started this journey, I was hesitant to wear a jacket daily due to the perception that it was reserved for special occasions. But as time went on and I became more comfortable in the sartorial world and more knowledgeable, I began to see the jacket as just another piece of clothing. As long as it was paired correctly with the rest of the ensemble, there won't be any problem. Personal pivoting is the game-changing concept that allows you to dress up in your own unique way while still staying relevant to those around you. When you combine it with context-based styling and the formality ladder, which helps scope your choice of garments and then interpret those choices in your own style, you'll find that even in the modern world where dressing up is often seen as unnecessary and you're likely to get asked, "Where are you going?" more often than ever, it still represents the elegance that today's world craves more than ever, and that elegance is waiting for you to bring it back, just as it once glory in the bygone era. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention. I hope to see you in the next one, and wish you to have a great day.